week on Storyboard, on the sidelines of WPP stream, we caught up with Rob Norman, director Zeotap, and spoke to him about why brands should invest in building trust. And we also catch up with Gautaman Ragothaman, Global Chief Strategy Officer FAST, and speak to him about how blockchain technology will impact our future. Hello and welcome to Storyboard. This is Shibani Gharat. Rob Norman, director Zeotap, feels that trust is becoming increasingly important, but it is also incredibly undermined. In this conversation that he had with Storyboard editor Anant Rangaswamy, he speaks to us about how trust is very hard to earn, hence the future of branding is going to be very bright. Let's take a look at this chat to understand how can brands build trust in a world that is so democratized yet corrupted.
Inventing Sophia.
What do you think should be required for robot citizenship?
So Rob, unplanned,
yes,
provoked by something you said just now, what's the correlation between brand and trust today? And what are the implications of that correlation?
It seems that trust is becoming incredibly important in some dimensions, but incredibly undermined in other dimensions. So if you look at all of the recent stories about bot farms and trolls on Twitter and Facebook and the general undermining of trust in the truth and in fact, and then you think about the idea of brands being in this sort of perfectly democratized and nowhere to hide world, but you could argue that if brands can maintain their position and increase their position as a proxy for trust almost for consumers, then the future of branding is very important. And if the future of branding is important, then the future of advertising by extension is important.
Right. So how easy is it in today's complex marketplace, call it what you want, to maintain that trust?
Well, I think we all know that trust is something that's very hard to earn and very easy to lose. And I think every business is looking in so many ways now. We've had so many movements. We've had racial equality followed by gender equality. We'll soon be having movements around income equality. We're having movements around harassment. We're having movements around trust, movements around violence and so forth. And it becomes increasingly clear that these are not externalities for corporate America and corporate India and corporate the world. Every one of these things is taking place outside of their worlds, actually taking place inside their worlds too. So I think there's a lot of self-reflection going on inside advertising businesses, media businesses, and manufacturing business, saying what type of company are we, what do we stand for, and what do we mean in a world where people are seeing that social activism can change things very quickly. And what you would hope to do is to think about using those same forces that can undermine trust and look at how you can turn those to your advantage to create and maintain trust.
Right. We've seen at Cannes in the last few years, a lot of, shall we say, movements have won great awards, you know?
Yeah.
So-called movements. Now, is it time now for real movements and brands to take very hard positions on issues that really matter to society?
I think it's very difficult. I think you need to think about universality. So as you can take a position broadly about do you think it's right or wrong that children get killed at school, it's relatively easy to take that position. Right. Do you believe it's right or wrong for lead to be in drinking water? It's quite easy to take on those positions. Do you believe that excessive packaging is a good thing or a bad thing, or consumption of fossil fuels is a good thing?
Binary, yeah.
So those, well, they're binary and understanding the things you can take a position about. But the question is exactly where do you take your position in that? Because you have to think about all of your stakeholders. That includes your people and your shareholders and many others. So you have to think about your position, but you also have to think about whether or not it's legitimate for you to play in that space. So it's incredibly legitimate, for example, for a P&G and Unilever to say that we are going to attempt to go carbon neutral by cutting our inputs and our use of plastics in manufacturing by X in such a period of time. And that's an entirely relevant business for Unilever to be in, or P&G. Now, it's an interesting question that says that can Unilever legitimately take a position in the gun lobby question? Because I don't know if they have a relationship with the NR anyway. Maybe not. Maybe that's harder. So I think that you can believe in many things, but you would choose with care the things that you would activate against, and within that find a context that's especially relevant.
Not seen this 20 years ago, but seeing it today, the rate at which a movement picks up.
Yeah.
You know, Parkland is a fantastic example. 24 hours, it was a movement.
Yes.
And with no real owner of the movement, no real leader of the movement, is that something we have to get used to seeing?
Well, I think we need to conjoin two things. I think you need to conjoin the speed at which a movement comes into being and the amount of time it lasts. Right. Sure. And so we've got an interesting situation. So there's three currently. So we've got the gun safety movement with Parkland. We've had Me Too with sexual harassment. We've also had It's Time with sexual harassment. In the advertising business, we've got See Her, which is about positive imaging of women in advertising and programming. And what I think is more important is, like everything else in marketing, and you talk to the marketers here at Stream, and people will tell you that speed is only valuable if it comes with scale and durability. And because that's what business is about. And I think that the scale and durability of Parkland and Me Too and It's Time and See Her and all of the others will be the things that tell you that. But also, if you work in the advertising business all your life, as I have done, you also know the very rapid build of reach is sometimes a very good precursor to something that's durable and scalable. And what we've seen with Parkland is a very rapid build of reach. It's tragic that it takes those circumstances for that to happen.
So is it going to be in the era of high-quality trend spotters who advise brands on, where something is and what part of a curve, what point of a curve it is?
I think that what will happen is that so many good things happen in business when businesses truly analyze themselves. And so if you're in big food, for example, and you think about what you do in big food, and you realize that you have a significant contribution to health and nutrition of people and delivering it in the right way. So if you're Nestle, you realize that a long-term plan to reduce the sugar content in Maggi, for example, or the salt content in Maggi is generally a good thing to do. And so what you try and do is you try and work on the science of flavor, and you try and work on the performance of the goods, and you do the right thing. And the more that you look inside yourself and say, it's our goal to do the right thing, the more stories you will find that you can, and I like the idea of story finding inside an enterprise in your behavior rather than just storytelling. But if you can find stories out of authentic behavior that you've done for the right thing, the ability of that to give you stories to then tell is very high. And I think there's a lot of companies out there that don't need trend spotters to tell them that. So,
Rob, you've got out of the business officially, it seems, out of WPP, I'm sorry, out of Group M, really. So, have you done the right thing? We spoke of the right thing just now. Have you done the right thing?
So I think that there's three questions to answer. One, was it the right time for me? Yes, I think so, because I would have regretted not finding out if there were other things that I were interested in. Yep. Was it the right time for Group M? I think it was, because I'm staying as involved with them to an extent on some big issues as I think they would like me to be. And it's a good time for young generals. I've said that before. And I remain a believer in marketing. I remain a believer in the media services industry and the marketing services industry. And I'm now very interested in people that have got businesses that they're building that involve new and valuable applications of data, new and innovative ways of creating engagement and brand trust, if you like, and new and innovative ways of the creation and distribution of content, given the fractured nature of the ecosystem we live in. And I think that sometimes you have to have the freedom to do that having a full-time job for a large enterprise doesn't let you have. And so, as inevitably happens in these situations, I'm working twice as hard for half the money.
Fantastic. Cheers, and thank you for talking to me.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you.
It is time for us to slip into a short break. On the other side of this break, we catch up with Gautaman Ragothaman, Global Chief Strategy Officer, FAST, about how blockchain technology will impact our future.